And we are back. Um, this might feel a little different, only because I'm recording this in the wee hours of the morning. My voice might be a little raspy. I just got back into the house, and it's uh, almost 1 a.m. where I'm at. So, but I figured to keep the cadence that we've had thus far. I try to sneak one of these episodes in. Um, it'll be quick, uh, but it will still have hopefully the same impact that all the others have had to this point. Um, but yeah, we're gonna start off how we always start off: an exercise in mindfulness. 10 breaths. Focus on your breath. As always, I prefer your eyes closed, and pardon my voice. Now that we're here, as always, I have like a brain teaser for you. This one is every night I'm told what to do, and each morning I do what I'm told, but I still don't escape your scold. What am I? Um, I think the last time I talked about how, I guess in wearing my academic hat, that the semester's coming to a close, so there's a lot that's happening, and it'll continue to happen over the next week or so. As and I teach seniors at the university level, so graduations are around the corner, which means that I have to get on stage and shake hands and hug and embrace my students, the ones that are graduating or the ones that are graduating, which for the most part is most, if not all of them. But in one of the other hats that I hold, as not the tech founder, but as the innovation consultant, creativity consultant, and in that capacity, I get to help individuals and organizations connect to their creativity. I want to say maybe 2 episodes ago we talked about the idea of the workshops and the benefits of those, and just like this group and community think tank, and creating space to allow for creativity. But one of the things I notice, especially when I'm back in the space, in this corporate space. I come from a corporate background. I have an extensive career in corporate, so I'm all too familiar with what it is like to be in that environment. I don't miss it, but I understand it. And over the last week or two, I've had opportunities to get back in share spaces, either through events where I've had the opportunity to kind of revisit those experiences, but talk to the people. But beyond that, just offering my services to organizations, and specifically just creativity. And one of the things that I realize is that there's this disconnect that exists between creativity and the design that happened in corporate structures or corporate environments. And if you hold some sort of design role within organizations, whether you're involved in innovation or product design or process design, then I want to say that you understand design, or you've grown to interpret design in a way that is almost separate or distinct from creativity itself. One of the things that like we've talked about on here is how personal the creative experience is, the creative process is, and in your professional life, rarely do you get to be or showcase your personality, or rarely does it ever feel personal. The role or the experience that you have in your professional capacity, rarely does it overlap with your personal life or personal experience or personal feelings. And I think there's obvious reasons for that, but I feel because of that, there's this idea where, again, going back, like reiterating this thought that creativity and design feels almost like two different things, almost like they're the antithesis of each other, which is interesting. And at first, like I would like question, why isn't it obvious that they are connected and are complements of each other, and one breeds the other. And I realize it's because if you've ever designed in an organizational setting, one of the things that you realize that there's so much structure associated with it. There is process, there's timeline, there is expectations, there are constraints. There's all these things that have to be considered. There are tools, there are procedures, there's expectations, and all of these things aren't necessarily synonymous or characteristics of the creative process, especially in the way that we've talked about it to this point. And I think because of that, when we think of that design process, given the way that we describe it, it doesn't feel like the creative process. It doesn't feel personal. There's no storytelling involved. There's no connections being made. There's no human experience. There's no empathy. And it almost feels like you're describing opposing thoughts, opposing ideas, and like opposing things. And I think I'm reminded of that every time I'm like in those spaces. And it is always fascinating, and I'm always taken aback by this idea of like being in a room with designers and people responsible for innovation. But anytime the word creativity comes up, it almost feels unfamiliar to them, especially in the way that they design. And it's interesting because it is almost like they associate creativity with art, and art shouldn't be functional because their role as designers is generally to build or to amplify functionality. And when you don't see art as functional, it makes sense why there is this disconnect, or why this disconnect exists. And I see that a lot, especially in a lot of the products that are being designed today, the processes that happens within the confines of these organizations that I've had the opportunity to visit or be a part of or engage with. The version of design that is being produced, and the products that come from those designs almost feel as if though they're absent of creativity. And they're not warm, they're not welcoming, they feel there's no established connection to, no personal connection, at least for me, when I interact with it, when I engage with it. I don't feel personally connected to it. And I want to believe it's because there wasn't any creativity involved in the design process. And it's difficult to convince those people the need for creativity when, for however long, the design, the true design, or the design they believe that is expected. So the expected design or the mandated design almost feels procedural, and it is almost like the designs that come out are predetermined. And I don't blame the designers more than I blame the institution that has to uphold the design standards that dictate what and how it is supposed to look and how it is supposed to feel. And I use the term feel loosely here because it lacks feelings and feeling. And it's always like difficult to have those conversations. And I only in the beginning, because I think designers are naturally creatives. Human beings are creatives in general. So I know that I'm talking to individuals that are creatively connected, that understand the importance of creativity and know that they are creative. But for some reason, because of the personal relationship they have with creativity and the impersonal relationship they have with their professional life, and their organization, it is almost subconsciously intentional that they separate the two. And a lot of the times when I talk creativity to these individuals, it's almost like when they hear it, the person they think of or the version of themselves that they think of is not the version that shows up to work, or not the version of themselves that are in these design sprints, and not the version of themselves that produce the products that are associated with the organizations or the brands that they are affiliated with, or that they work for. And I want to change that. I want to somehow disrupt that line of thought. I want to dismantle that idea that art cannot be functional, that product design shouldn't be personal, that you are limited to the tools and the standards and the expectations of the corporate structure and the corporate environment. I want to reintroduce personality. I want to reintroduce a personal experience, feeling, empathy, emotions back into the design process. And I think we are victims of the tools that have been introduced. AI, there's an argument against like AI here, but even in the design tools, and I don't want to specifically call out like any particular design tool, but I think because there's this idea that like tools are evidence of the absence of human limit, the absence of human capability. So tools are evidence of human limitations, and it has convinced us that we are inadequate in certain capacities because these tools exist that we can leverage in order to fill in the gaps and get us from point A to point B. And I think sometimes we forget that those tools are a product of not only our necessity, but our ability and our capabilities to design and innovate and invent things. And I think we become so comfortable with the tools, and we've grown accustomed to using them, that we forget that we are not only the inventors, that we can still create in the absence of those said tools. And I want to take us to a place or to a point where we can get back to that version of ourselves that see the tools as a nice to have as opposed to a necessity. I want to get back to us seeing design as a way to communicate our human need, our human desires, human expression, establishing connection, and communicating a thought, a feeling, an experience. And thinking of all those elements of the human experience in design, and get back to injecting creativity in its full essence, in all the aspects of it, and be intentional about it. I think design shouldn't be cold. It shouldn't be emotionless. It shouldn't be so rigid and structured. I think when we define or describe design, there should definitely be elements of creativity. There should be overlap of creativity. Creativity should not only be there, it should be everywhere. It should be recognized and present in every aspect of the design process. And it should be less about the tooling and more about the human experience. And I think we forget that. I think the design of today, the product design, the process design of today has convinced us that the human element isn't as important. The opportunity to make mistakes isn't as important. The ability to push the boundaries of what is possible isn't as important. The ability or the desire to be unorthodox is not important. The ability or the yearning to challenge the status quo is not important. And I want to reimagine what design is inside these spaces. I want us to return to the essence of design, the creative aspect of design, the human aspect of design, the relational aspect of design, the emotional aspect of design. So it feels less professional and more personal. I think that is important. I think as a society, as a as a as a I don't know what the right word here would be, but as a collective, as an industry, especially in spaces and capacities that involve anything relating to innovation and design, I think we need to get back to the essence of what it means to be a designer, an innovator. And that requires a reconnection to creativity in every aspect of the word. And one of the things that I've said here, and I'll continue to repeat, art doesn't have to be artistic, but also art doesn't have to be purely aesthetic. It can also be functional, and it can help influence and inform not only how we design, but what we ultimately end up designing. Again, I don't want to extend this longer than it needs to be. We started with every night I'm told what to do, and each morning I do what I'm told. But I still don't escape your scold. What am I? I am an alarm clock. I will leave you how I always leave you. Go be great.